Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. Joining us on all of our different streaming platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I think I said Facebook, all of the platforms that we're on. Good evening. My name is Olga Meshoe-Washington, and I am one of IPSI's board members, as well as the Speakers Bureau Chief. Tonight, you just have me. I'm flying solo. Our executive director, Joshua Washington, is on his way to do some IPSI work in California, and our CEO, Dubisani Washington, he's also engaged in some IPSI activities. So it's just me. This is my first time running the show on my own. So bear with me as I go along. I'm grateful for our incredible producer at the back end who's going to be helping me stay focused. I would love to have your comments as we go throughout and have a discussion over the next hour. So please keep them coming. By way of some introductory announcements, please, we encourage you to visit our website, ipsi.org, for more information about who we are and what we do, our advocacy, the resources that we have available. Pretty sure that you will be encouraged as well as learn a lot. We also, on a pretty much weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis, issue out some well-written, if I may say so myself, articles tackling various topics that impact the relationship between Blacks and Jews, and also between Israel and Africa. And that can be found on our Substack channel. There's the link over there, ipsi.substack.com. Follow us on Africa Weekly. And then also, the work that we do would not be possible without the generous support of our donors. And so I encourage you this evening to consider becoming a legacy donor. A legacy donor is someone who wants to help us meet the bills, right? There's bills that need to be paid. There's lights that need to be kept on in order for us to do the work that we do, the education that we do, the advocacy, the strengthening of the ties between the different communities, Jewish as well as Black. And on a monthly basis, a legacy builder saying, I believe in you, IPSI, and I'm grateful for what you're doing. And we want to ensure that we're able to change the tide together, that we're able to change the tide of anti-Semitism, we're able to change the tide of what Black and Jewish relationships look like. So do consider becoming an IPSI legacy builder. Lastly, we are running our 100,000 in 29 days fundraising campaign. And this is a annual campaign that we have in order to meet the operational costs that IPSI have. We have staff members who do various things, from our graphics, our education. When we're invited to speak, sometimes our costs are paid for, sometimes not, because we really want to meet the needs of the community where we are. And we need our expenses to be paid. So please do consider contributing to this campaign. We've had a great response over the last couple of weeks. We are 4 days out, still a few $1,000 short of our goal. So please do consider donating to us. IPSI is a tax deductible entity. We're a nonprofit, and so all of your gifts to us, you will be able to claim that on your taxes. All righty, 3 last announcements. We have got a new date for our Miami event. Our executive director is going to be down in Miami. We apologize for those that were expecting us yesterday. That was an old date. Our new date is April the 7th, which gives everybody more time to get there and have a wonderful time with IPSI as well as our partners in Miami. IPSI will also be in Chicago this weekend. We are doing a community event together with our longtime friends and partners. Stand with us. It's going to be an incredible evening on Sunday evening, wonderful time of music and speakers that are going to be unifying all of those in the audience. We encourage you to go onto our website. You'll be able to see the details for that. And if you're in Chicago, don't be a stranger. Do come out and be with us that evening. The last announcement for now is that IPSI, being an educational platform in terms of the resources that we provide, we have got a new video out that challenges the truth in relation to Palestine, well, the so-called Palestine, and the link between Hamas and the PLO. We're going to show you a snippet from that. Please do enjoy.
Especially since the civil rights era of the 1960s, arguably no other ethnic group has been targeted with anti-Israel or pro-Palestinian propaganda more than the Black American community. There has been the expectation on the part of Israel critics that Black people will be sensitive to the plight of the poor Arab Palestinians. In fact, Dr. King not only defended Israel's right to exist within its territorial integrity, he also advocated for international aid for the Arabs of the region and what he called that third world of hunger, of disease, of illiteracy. However, within each of the many Black for Palestine efforts that existed since the 1960s, there has been one constant glaring omission: the Arab Palestinian leaders' abuse and exploitation of their own people. In 1975, Black Americans to Support Israel Committee co-founder Bayard Rustin criticized PLO chairman Yasser Arafat for abusing the people he claimed to represent. It should be noted that the PLO's terrorism is practiced on the dissidents within the Palestinian community as well as on Israelis and their supporters. Arafat likes to talk of the PLO goal of establishing a democratic state, but here again, we must distinguish between a word's actual meaning and Arafat's definition. The PLO is certainly no model for democracy. No one elected Arafat to represent the Palestinians. Its authority is guaranteed by the freedom fighter's gun, to which Mr. Arafat referred at the UN. Still today, the list of human rights abuses afflicted by Hamas and the PLO is very long. So here are some examples. The leaders of the Arab Palestinian people use minor children as soldiers or enemy combatants and intentionally place them in harm's way. This is one of the most heinous parts of Yasser Arafat's legacy. They use school textbooks, summer camps, and children's television programs to indoctrinate children to hate or kill Israelis. They commit war crimes, including the murder of their own women and children. They embezzle billions in international aid money while Arab Palestinian people remain in poverty. Hamas and PLO leaders have personal net worths of millions, and some are worth billions. They block Palestinians from receiving needed medical services in Israel, but access Israeli doctors or hospitals for themselves and their families. They store missiles in or near active hospitals, schools, mosques, and churches, then launch those missiles into Israel from these locations. They ban freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Palestinian journalists are routinely harassed, imprisoned, or tortured. In 2020, Hamas arrested a young peace activist from Gaza for having a Zoom conversation with Israelis. They banned free and fair elections. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas was elected to a 4-year term in 2005. Hamas ruled Gaza along with its rival Fatah in 2006, then took complete control in 2007. They persecute Christians. They torture and kill prisoners. They allow the honor killing of women. They torture and kill gay men. In his 2012 article entitled "Why Palestinians Want Israeli Citizenship," Arab-Israeli journalist Khaled Abu Tawameh stated, "Many of those who have applied for Israeli citizenship are Christians from Jerusalem who are afraid of ending up under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority or Hamas." Ironically, obtaining Israeli citizenship has become a way for Palestinians to ensure their social, economic, health, and education rights in the country. There is no denying that applying for Israeli citizenship in defiance of PLO and Hamas warnings is also a political statement on the part of the applicants. They are actually making clear that they would prefer to live under Israel than any Arab rule. Since IPSI's founding in 2013, we have actively sought a Black pro-Palestinian person or group who consistently defends Palestinian human rights, those who are willing to rebuke the Palestinians' real oppressors. We have found none. For those who consider themselves defenders of Palestinian human rights, we simply ask, where is the support for the Palestinian struggle against Hamas? Where is the protest against the abuse of the PLO? Do you realize that terrorists are using you as their cover for violence and theft? There are brave men and women living under crushing Palestinian rule. When will you be their voice?
When will you be their voice? What a powerful ending to that incredible video. Everybody that's participating and watching the forum this evening, you have viewed the debut of that particular video. It has been very well researched, and as you saw at the tail end, it is based on a chapter of the book Zionism in the Black Church by our CEO, Meshoe-Washington, which if you have not read it, if you do not have a copy, it is available on our website as well as on Amazon. I promise you it will change your understanding of what is going on in Israel, why it is so important that we speak up and that we educate in relation to Black, Jewish, as well as Africa-Israel relationships. And I want to make that call out today as well. Where are your voices? If you really say that you care about the people of Palestine and everybody that's then marching down the streets, free Palestine, where are you now? And I ask, where are you now? Not only in relation to October 7, all the atrocities that happened on the day and that have continued to happen in relation to not only the Palestinian people, but the Israeli civilians that continue to be under rocket fire, as well as the over 130 hostages that today are still in captivity. Not only then, but much of the information that was in that video and also from the book is from years past, decades past. The oppression of Hamas, of the Palestinian people, as well as Iran by using Hamas as a proxy has been going on for years. So where have your voices been? Now, over my journey in this space, I have tried to err on the side of when people say something anti-Semitic, I'll be like, you know what? You're ignorant. I'll give it to you. You're just saying something anti-Semitic versus immediately labeling a person an anti-Semite. Because I've seen it. I come from a country where many a times people will say stuff that is so stupid and so anti-Semitic, but it's because they were misinformed. There was a lot of disinformation that they were exposed to. But when they then hear a different perspective and they start to research the truth for themselves and ask questions, they then realize the error of their understanding and what they knew to be true. And then they start to embrace the truth. They're not anti-Semites. They just happen to have espoused an anti-Semitic view. This evening, I want to spend a few moments on giving an example of somebody who is not just spewing anti-Semitic statements and libels. She is an anti-Semite. And unfortunately, I didn't want to become somebody that continues to talk about Candace Owens, but we need to talk about Candace Owens. So Candace Owens, over the last week, took it upon herself to, with all the issues that is going on in the world, to come for Tiffany Haddish. Why? Because Tiffany, bless her heart, is sitting on a plane and is excited about the fact that she's going to Israel. She's going to check out Israel for herself, and she makes a joke about finding a man and various other things. I laughed with my husband. I was like, I remember comments like that when I would travel and be like, maybe I'm going to go find my man. I mean, it's a joke. But anyway, so she's not saying that she's going to go to Israel and she's going to educate herself. And in various audio clips from interviews that Tiffany had since that particular live on her Instagram was put out, she was like, I don't believe everything that's in the media. I'm wanting to go to Israel and see for myself what is happening in this Israel-Hamas war. Do you think Candace even raised the fact that, you know what, actually it's a good thing that somebody wants to go and educate herself? No. That's not Candace. This is what Candace had to say in her several minute, I'm going to use the word attack against Tiffany Haddish. Again, just because she's going to Israel. Lots of other issues going on, but let's attack somebody because they're going to Israel. Some of Candace's Owens, and I quote, "This is what I mean when I say that people are waking up to propaganda. Who wants to visit a country at war? Does that pass a sniff test for anybody? Yeah, I definitely want to go visit this country while bombs are being dropped. Does that make perfect sense? Why not visit it when they are not in the middle of the war? Wouldn't that make more sense?" Without wanting to spend too much time on Candace, I do want to address the fact that, or rather address her question, her statement to be like, who wants to go to Israel in a time of war? Well, Candace and everybody listening, here are 3 reasons why a person, including Tiffany Haddish and others, like myself, will go and visit Israel in war. Number 1, for those that may not know, and Candace, if you had chosen to do a little bit of research, you may have found out that Tiffany is of Jewish heritage. Her father is an Eritrean Jew. So she's going home. She's going to the homeland of the Jewish people. Doesn't matter in a time of war, time of peace. If your home is under attack, don't you want to go see what's happening to your people? Okay. Number 1, a person can go because it's their home. We have lots of Americans here in the United States and across the world that want to go and that do go to Israel, their home, to see what's going on, their homeland. Number 2, education. It might be a good thing to want to see things for yourself so that people don't fall prey to disinformation as well as propaganda. But you know what was even more disturbing is the fact that Tiffany even articulated the fact that she wanted to go and be educated. Candace mocking her and saying, this smells like propaganda. How do you know it's propaganda? She hasn't even left to go and she's saying, I want to go and see Israel for myself. Anybody that wants to understand the truth, every single time I have been to Israel, and I have friends who were total anti-Semites. They were working for the BDS on campuses, turning those places upside down. Then they went to Israel and they saw for themselves the diversity. They saw for themselves how Israel is an innovation nation and how she's helping multiple countries around the world. They saw for themselves the various untruths that are being spoken, and then they changed. And they have become incredible advocates, not only for Israel, but for the truth and for their very own people. So now it's a problem for us to go to Israel and educate ourselves? Actually, no. A very, very good reason why in the middle of a war, we should be going to Israel is because we want to see the truth of exactly what is happening. Too much propaganda happening on the media, too much disinformation and misinformation and people lying. Go and see it for yourself. Third reason, if you say that you are friends with the Jewish people, or if as a Christian like myself, you say you have an affinity to Israel because it is the land of the Bible, surely you'll go. Surely you'll go and you'll help the economy of a place that's suffering because it's at war. Surely you'll go and perhaps volunteer for the farmers who don't have their workers because those workers, amongst many other things, may have been called to go and fight a battle. So now there's harvest time, but nobody to go and pick. There are children that are traumatized that could use the help of volunteers who just want to be there. There are child centers. There are homes and communities that have been destroyed. What about volunteers that will go help and build? If you say that you are a friend, and I'm going to go back to addressing Candace Owens directly, you've quoted many a times, and Joshua and I spoke last week about how in your, if I may say so, you're gaslighting us. And no, you can't be an anti-Semite. You can't be saying anti-Semitic things because you have Jewish friends. Okay, you have Jewish friends. Why don't you go and help? Why don't you go and volunteer? So, ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A, Candace Owens, is an example of somebody that has become a full-blown anti-Semite. But let me just recap, because I don't want it just to be about her. Israel is in a time of war, and this is when she needs her friends the most. If you can, make it a point to go to Israel, see for yourself what's happening, educate yourself, get the truth for yourself, speak to people on the ground, the Jews, the non-Jews, the Muslims, the Druze, the Bedouins, all of them. Speak to them and find out what their experiences are, and go and volunteer and go help out and go and be a blessing to them. All right. Now, an interesting fun fact that I learned at the beginning of the year is that 40 countries in the world are going to be going to the polls in 2024. It is a time of great change across the world. And on the African continent, there are many countries, including South Africa, that are going to the polls this year. Former President Cyril Ramaphosa, wow, look at me being prophetic. He is still the president. President Cyril Ramaphosa last week announced that South Africa is going to be going to the polls on the 29th of May. And so we then see now, for those that may not be familiar with South African politics, we'll start to see an uptick in campaigning activities by different political parties. One of these campaigning activities was the kickstart of the ANC's electioning efforts by virtue of their manifesto launch that happened on Saturday. Before I speak a little bit to it, I'm going to ask our producer to show you about 30 to 40 seconds of what happened at the beginning of the manifesto launch. So much to say on that, but let me preface it by reminding us, or at least those that tuned in last week, and if you didn't tune in, here's a recap of a little bit of what we discussed, that in Parliament last week, the president of the African Christian Democratic Party, Reverend Kenneth Meshoe, called out the ANC, telling the ANC that it had gone too far in its blatant anti-Israel stance, not just pro-Palestinian stance, but anti-Israel stance, and that God was going to judge the ANC per Genesis 12:3, where the Lord says that I will bless those who bless you. He's talking to Abraham and Abraham's seed. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and that the ANC had drawn upon itself a curse. Now, I would think that a people who are like, oh, you know what? Maybe we have gone too far, and especially Cyril Ramaphosa, who professes to be a Christian, who knows scripture as well, to be like, okay, we've gone too far. No, that's not what they do. They dig in their heels further. What you just witnessed was in the stadium called the Moses Mabhida Stadium, is the incoming officials and various delegates into the stadium, seated, if I'm not mistaken, about 65, maybe even 70,000 people. What you may not have seen was the tiny ANC flags that were being flown, right? So ANC flags, they've got their own flags being flown. Did anybody see any flag of South Africa, the country that the ANC is trying to again win the majority votes for so they can govern the country that is their country? Did you see any South African flags? I didn't. And there's also pictures of the manifesto, the event, that are on the internet. I saw some flags, but tiny. What do we see, however? Massively taking up space, massively being shown and proudly taken around, the flag of Palestine. The flag of Palestine, larger, more prominent than even the flag of the own people of the Republic of South Africa. This is the position that the ANC has taken. Forget about state capture. There is full-on capture by the ANC. Further evidence again that they are in the pockets of Iran, that they have chosen, unfortunately, to align themselves with Hamas and Hamas terrorists. That's now what they've put out there. What was interesting is that also in his comments outlining what the ANC wanted to do for South Africa, if South Africans were to once again elect them into power, Lord, please may that not happen. He mentioned 6 points, or at least he mentioned various points that they were going to be looking at in terms of pillars of their campaign. And one of those points, point number 6, was that the ANC was seeking a better Africa and a better world. A better Africa and a better world. And then he goes on to talk about how that better Africa and that better world is going to be exemplified by the ANC continuing to stand with Palestine, quote unquote, continuing to stand with Hamas. Mr. President, with respect, sir, yes, I'm a child of the continent, and more specifically, I'm a daughter of South Africa. Where has your voice been in relation to, if you say that you want a better Africa, where has your voice been in relation to the over 4,000 Christians that continue to be murdered by Boko Haram, who is Hamas, owned, used by the same Iran, proxies of Iran? Where was your voice? Where have your voices been, ANC? Where were your voices the year prior when over 5,000 of them were slaughtered? Where? Even Mozambique. And we're going to start to call this out again and again and again, because Africans need to know. Anybody who says that they are concerned about human life needs to know that Iran is not it, that the work of the ANC is allowing Iran and more of its proxies, Hamas, Boko Haram, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, well, not Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab in the east of Africa, allowing them to be home more and more and to continue to slaughter our own people. But we're saying that it's about a better world. It's about a better Africa. I mean, you are even displaying the flag of Palestine in the faces of South African, and you can't even display the South African flag at the same time. Mind you, you're also failing your people. South Africa and the leadership of South Africa, rather, is failing its own people. But that's what we're going to display. That's how we're going to go about it. My heart is grieving. My heart is sore. I'm thankful for the many hundreds, and if I'm not mistaken, even thousands of people that yesterday across South Africa gathered to pray, to distance themselves from the actions of the African National Congress, saying that the actions of the government does not represent the ANC, and does not represent the ordinary person on the street. And this is also something that we of IPSI have covered several times, and that they are actively distancing themselves from that. Okay, South Africans, now that we've prayed, what are we going to do? It's time to act. It's time to speak up. It's time to, in practical ways, show our love for the Jewish people, show our love for Israel, show our solidarity, and not allow our nation, our young people. Again, if you go on the internet and you look for pictures of the rally last week, we have got young girls, young men carrying that flag. Young people carrying that flag as a source of pride. Who remembers? And we discussed it on the forum a few weeks ago. Maybe it was a few months ago. We're heading into March. A young Tanzanian man shot execution style from Tanzania, kidnapped by Hamas. Young African man shot. No life, no virtue. Did we hear anything from the ANC? No. They're taking our young men, but we're still celebrating the fact. Free, free Palestine, genocidal cause. It's time to act. It's time to do something. Let's switch out to some announcements. I want to remind everybody that if you want to help contribute to the work, the necessary work, the very, very important work of strengthening relations, and we do it in a way that is not just about being relevant in the now. We are wanting to be relevant in the now that has an impact in the future. That's why we call ourselves building a legacy. So if you want to contribute to the building of that particular legacy, please consider making a tax-deductible gift to the work of IPSI. If you would love for your audience, your community, your schools, wherever you may be, your pastors to hear from our CEO, he's got an incredible wealth of information and knowledge over decades of years. God has given him a voice as well as an ability to break things down like somebody I haven't actually heard before. Please go onto our website and look at the dates that are there to go and not only hear him speak, but also to invite him. Also, our executive director and yours truly, we are available as part of our speakers bureau. One of the things that our executive director does very well is he's a musician, for those that may not know. And in this capacity, both in terms of music, but also speaking, he has got a show as part of the IPSI umbrella called The JW Show. And at the end of last week, we issued out a new episode, and we'll be issuing out another episode this week. I'm asking our producer to play one of those episodes, which can be found on our Substack. And it is a snippet of an interview by Joshua with Rabbi Matthew Abelson.
Africa is one of those places where there's a real future for humanity. I feel like that's one of the places, I mean, there are other places in the world where we're going to see that, but particularly Africa. I would love to see America acknowledge and lean into, because we know that America, the United States, is a mixture of European and African.
Right.
And that African piece has been downplayed up until a certain point. I think we need to lean into that more and recognize the potential. I remember I was serving as a rabbi in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I lived across the street from a Muslim family, a Ghanaian family, and the father of the family had been a pilot.
Right.
And I remember speaking with him, and he was lamenting to me that China and Russia were leaning so hard into Africa in ways that were ultimately exploitative, and why the United States didn't seem as interested. And so I'm really curious to see if the African American community is interested in exploring in the same way that the Jewish community has done, you know, making that homeland more secure.
That is the JW Show, available on our Substack. If our producer can put the details for our Substack up again, you can go there and find all previous interviews, as well as the interview with Rabbi Matthew Abelson. And also you can find the articles that staff, as well as our IPSI ambassadors, write. Great, great material that is out there. Okay. I spoke a little bit about the ANC, and I was fussing also in relation to the Palestinian flag and Hamas. And I mentioned the fact that my heart is sore. I also referenced how the ANC has been very silent in the face of the slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. The slaughter of those Christians has been at the hands of Boko Haram, but also at the hands of the Fulani herdsmen. A picture went, in my opinion, viral, and maybe didn't go viral, but it was seen in a lot of places, of Hamas meeting Nigerian leaders. I think we have got a picture of that. Yes, there we go. So Hamas is in Nigeria. We knew that in terms of them being in Nigeria by virtue of their kin, Boko Haram. But here now we have Hamas taking pictures with the leadership of Nigeria. The question that we need to be asking is, why are they there, and what good do they have to bring? It's very easy to answer the latter part. And the latter part is that they have nothing good to bring. I would like to bring to everybody's attention and remind us that in 2014, There was a campaign that went viral after over 270 girls were kidnapped by Boko Haram. Bring back our girls. At the hands of Boko Haram, who are Hamas, kidnapped to this day. How many of us remember that? Or even, how many of us have heard the phrase, bring back our girls? Bring back our girls. There are over 100 of those young ladies still missing. Some count say 90, some count say 100. Still too much. So let's take the smallest number. Over 90 young ladies today in the year 2024 missing. Where is the world? Totally silent. Where is South Africa? Totally silent. Candace Owens, where are you? Totally silent. Bring back our girls. In 2018, there was another kidnapping, which wasn't as well put out in terms of getting the media attention that it deserved, where there were young girls who were also kidnapped. Many of those young girls, thank the Lord, were released. Unfortunately and sadly, many of the girls were dead. We now have a young lady called Leah Shimuni, who is still in captivity today. 14-year-old young lady in 2018 when she was captured. She is still in captivity today. Why? Because she refuses to convert to Islam. She refuses to leave her Christianity and to convert to Islam. And so her owners, Boko Haram, who have now effectively put her in slavery, are saying, we're not letting you go. Where are the voices for that young lady? Where are the voices? So as we raise our voices and we say, bring back the hostages that Hamas took, may we also raise our voices and say, those young girls from over 10 years ago that we've now forgotten, bring them back as well. Bring them back as well. Hamas is already raping, killing, doing even more harm to Israelis, Jews, non-Jews, people of various other nationalities as well, virtuously or rather thankfully, in terms of how that's being funded by Iran. And now Hamas is on the continent of Africa, boldly, publicly displaying themselves. When Nigerians are already being slaughtered, Nigerians are already being killed, these young ladies are still in captivity, and yet nothing. Nothing. Israel had the intelligence for the young ladies in 2014 not to be kidnapped. And if there had been the opportunity to use that intelligence, and for various reasons it wasn't available, or at least it wasn't allowed to be used, we lost those girls. There's a lot more travesty. We've spoken about here on the IPSI platform that terrorism has now moved to Africa. It is the epicenter of terrorism Africa finds itself in, all because of Hamas. We should be very, very, very concerned. Our hearts and our prayers, as well as our voices and our activism, should be reaching out, should be crying out for the freedom, for the liberation of the people, not only of Nigeria, but also in various parts of the continent. A reminder that Boko Haram is Hamas and Hamas is Boko Haram. So Hamas being in Africa, causing death and destruction, here's an example of what Israel in Africa does. Innovation Africa is one of IPSI's partners. We are thankful for their work over the many years on the African continent, bringing much, much needed clean water to the villages of people who would ordinarily have to trek hours upon hours, and in some places even days upon days, to get water just to drink and just to be able to cook and feed their families. But Innovation Africa, because of their great work, has been bringing lights as well as various other necessities to these communities and these villages. And in January, despite the outcry and the uproar in relation to free Palestine and support the Palestinians that the South African government has taken upon, and in terms of its position, Innovation Africa was in South Africa bringing much needed water to a village. Would love to show you a video of that. Do we have it? Reducers? 1 second. Okay. I'm looking at my notes and I understand that, oh dear, we lost our Instagram viewers for a moment. So if you've just joined us, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm not quite sure when we kicked back up and what of the last comments that I was making you lost me at. And so what I may need to repeat, and I'm very happy to do that. But let's see now if the video in relation to Innovation Africa is available. All right, I'm told it's ready. Yes, ma'am. Please play it. I'm told I'm muted. All right, let me say that again. I was saying thank you very much to the Kirsch Foundation, who, because of its generous sponsorship to Innovation Africa, has made the wonderful video and the scenes of celebration and rejoicing, which I'm going to comment about in a minute, to be possible. Kirsch is one of Innovation Africa's several partners, many partners, enabling them to do the work that they do. I want to comment, and I'm going to do so as an African, on some of the images that you saw in that video, and that is images of rejoicing and images of celebration. That is what Israel brings to the people of Africa. That is what Israel brings to communities in need. And I do want to say that no, Israel is not the savior of South Africa. Israel is not the person or the entity or the place or the people that's going to take all of Africa's problems away. Absolutely not. But it would be remiss of us, we would be fools if we were not going to recognize that if a friend is there and is saying, I can help you, I want to help you, I want to help you and make it about you, and not help you and take and make it about me, then we would be fools. And so we need to stop and pause and think about that for a second. I'd like to also take a few moments as I unpack this further to share something that's close to my heart, and that is the Africa that you see on TV today is not the Africa that is, or the Africa that can be. Oftentimes we see Africa and we see poverty and desperation and destitution. We see civil war and we see images like I've just been speaking about in relation to kidnapping. And unfortunately, we even, well, not so much, but we need to be talking a little bit about more. We even have real-time slavery today. Yes, those images represent a portion of Africa, but they don't define who Africa is. And so as Africa is coming into her own and needing to find ways in which to overcome the poverty and to have leaders who care about her people and have ways of innovation that will ensure that the young people who are on the continent, Africa in 2030 is going to have the world's largest population of young people. 50% of the world's youngest people are found or are going to be found on the African continent in just a few years. So we need friends. Africa needs friends that will inspire these young people to be innovative, inspire young people to create things, to the intelligence that God has given them to find ways in which they can be entrepreneurs that will leapfrog with technology, leapfrog ways in which to bring sustainable prosperity and economic celebration to the continent. So we should be celebrating that. And if Israel, that has been our friend since Makeda and King Solomon, something that we've spoken about many a times here on the Ipsy Show, and bringing it even more into the future, the 1950s and the 1960s, ladies and gentlemen, when many African nations were receiving their independence and their liberation from colonialization, Israel was a country on the continent that, after the United States, had the most number of embassies in the 1950s and the 1960s. And if you do the math, that's very, very soon after she herself had just been reborn. So Israel is rebuilding herself after just having received independence in 1948. But she's on the African continent, helping the African people build their lives, build their communities, build their nations. You go to almost any African country and you will find replicas, you will find examples, real life examples of how Israel and the Jews were on the African continent, helping us build our roads, build our infrastructure, be it security, our homes, agriculture, various other forms of empowerment. 1950s and the 1960s, Israel was there helping us. Without going into too much of a history lesson, unfortunately, many of those relationships that were created were cut. Diplomatic relations were cut because of Arab pressure and various other external factors. And Africa has gone through a time of great suffering. But I'm grateful, as I know many other Africans are grateful. And if you are saying that you are not only just interested in the lives of African people or in the lives of those who need, but just in humanity, right? That's a word that's being bantered around these days. Humanity, humanity. Where's your humanity? I'm a human rights activist, or I love this person, I love that person. I know I said that I wasn't going to make this about Candace, but I do have to go back there because her facade, yes, her facade is she cares, she cares. Okay, if you care, then you would want to see a people who have a need be helped. And if Israel has raised and continues to raise her hands and showcase the fact that here we are, we can help, and that we can see more of those images of celebration and empowerment. And I love the name Innovation Africa, right? Innovation Africa. It's about innovating Africa and allowing Africa to be even more of who she is on her own. Not Africa putting out aid, or rather receiving aid because she's put out her hand in order to receive it. Another statistic for another day. Maybe I should ask the executive producer for us just to do a show that's solely focused on Africa's wealth and potential and what she can bring about, right? Yes, Africa begs to the world, quote unquote, or she puts out her hand, so they tell us. But do you know that in the last decade, the amount of wealth that Africa gave to the world was 7 times more than she received in aid? I'll say it again. What Africa gave to the world in the last decade was 7 times more than she received in aid. So Africa is not poor. But there's various stumbling blocks. There's various issues that need to be dealt with. Yes, chief amongst those, Africans taking responsibility for themselves, which is why an African like me is saying, yes, in our taking responsibility for ourselves, we are going to reach out to those people, those nations that have proven themselves, that have a track record of being our friends, and Israel is chief amongst those. So, once again, if you would love to help us make a real difference in the lives of many, but also ensure that we continue to stand for truth, for righteousness, for justice, as it pertains to Israel and the attacks that she is under, the lies that she is under, the misinformation that she is under, unfortunately, by the left, by the right, even by Christians, then do consider becoming an Ipsy legacy builder. Help us to ensure that our work is able to continue, that we're able to make a difference, that we can. As I say that, I also want to reflect on words that our executive producer said, I think it was about 2 years ago when we launched a campaign in Juneteenth or around Juneteenth. And he said, when he was asked, what do you see, or where do you see Ipsy in the next few years? And he actually said, and I'm paraphrasing, that if Ipsy looks like it does today, then we would have failed our mandate. Yes, we intend to be around for as long as we need to be around, but we want to look very different. Why? Because our work would have been effective. Our work in educating and our work in creating bridges, building bridges, creating strong coalitions, changing hearts and changing minds with regards to Israel and the Jewish people would have been effective and changed, really changed, that the need for us to be speaking at a level like this would have been done away with, would have become even less, and that we'd be looking for even more ways in which the Africa-Israel, Black-Jewish relationships can be strengthened. And so when our young men, I share two boys with our executive director, Jude and Ezra, when they then step into what can they do for Israel and Africa, that they will find themselves in a different place. Not always playing catch up. Sometimes it feels as if we in the pro-Israel space are playing catch up to having to do what the other side has been taking down, having to rebuild, but that there would be a solid foundation in terms of which our communities can continue to move forward. So please consider becoming an IPSI legacy builder. Visit our website for more information about our resources, who we are, where we are. We've also got a YouTube channel that has incredible videos, not only similar to the one that you saw at the beginning of our broadcast. For those that only joined us halfway, we have got a new educational video called Free Palestine from Hamas and the PLO. So yes, it is for every single one of you who says that they are concerned about the plight of the Palestinian people. You want to free Palestine? Okay, educate yourself first as to who they need to be freed from, why they need to be freed from those people, and then do something about it. And you can do something about it by starting to educate yourself as well as sharing it out with everybody who needs to be educated. Okay, if there is nothing on there, I've got a comment that's coming through. Bravo from David Manson. Bravo. Thank you for speaking the truth and standing with what remains of sane civilization. The ANC regime is failing the country. So true to form. They are trying to distract by playing up the support for Hamas. Absolutely, David. Absolutely. Anyone who wants to interrogate and learn a little bit more about why the ANC is doing what they're doing. Again, this is something that we at IPSI have spoken about before. I'll touch on a few points in the few moments that we have left. Hamas's stay and Hamas's presence in South Africa is nothing new. Unfortunately, as far back as 2018, 2016, 2014, some people say even before then, Hamas was in South Africa. And so they've become emboldened. They've really found friends amongst the ANC and found friends amongst other political parties, yes, including the Economic Freedom Front. But it's almost like the Economic Freedom Front, because and now I'm going a little bit into South African politics, if you watch the manifesto launch, so at the beginning I mentioned how now that we'd have the date of when the South African elections are going to be, we've got a lot of parties ticking up their electioneering campaigns. And a couple of weeks ago, even though the date hadn't yet been announced, the EFF had their manifesto launch. And there they call him the commander-in-chief, their leader, Julius Malema, again, whom we've spoken about and covered in relation to his position to Israel on this show. He spoke about how they're going to support Palestine and how they're standing with the Palestinian people, blah, 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 blah. But there was no Palestinian flag. So it also, in terms of this distraction, seems to be a game between political parties, between the EFF as well as the ANC, as to who can support Hamas the best. What's crazy about this, it's literally who can support a people who will kill us once they've done their bidding with us. They will kill us once they've done their bidding with us. Who can support them more? Distracting from the failure of the African National Congress to serve its people. Crime rate through the roof. Hijacking through the roof. Employment down. Lights barely kept on. Education down. Now, I say all of that not to scare people away from visiting South Africa. It's a beautiful country with incredible people, but it is a country that is hurting, and it's hurting because we have a leadership that has aligned itself with a people who are just about the death and destruction of their own, and so will import the death and destruction of South Africans, unfortunately. I am checking with my producer if there is nothing left. Esther Green says, where can we find your new video? Our new video can be found on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to ask our producer to pull up the link to our YouTube channel. If I'm not mistaken, this might be Olga, I don't know, our 7th or 8th video of this. We've got information and videos out on how South Africans in their support for Israel are not a monolith. We've got information pertaining also to basic. And by Justin, we heard Hannah, who's the young lady, the beautiful young lady that was in the video, speak about the history there. That we've got information about the civil rights movement and what that meant for Black, Jewish, as well as Africa-Israel relations. We've got lots of videos, not only that are now available, but are also going to be coming soon, courtesy of our incredible IPSI ambassadors, who after their visits to Israel as well as South Africa over the last 18 months have now come back and are saying, yes, we went to visit Candace. We went to visit and educate ourselves. And here we are wanting to continue to educate and make a tangible difference in the understanding and knowledge of Black Jewish relations here in the United States. And part of their work in relation to that is helping us put out more content, like you saw, that is well researched, that provides information that many people say that they do not know. So please head out to our YouTube channel. Also on the YouTube channel, I should mention, where we have the opportunity to have our events recorded by partners that we might be invited to. Those videos, as well as the clips from that, are made available on the channel. Alrighty. If there is nothing left for the night, I do know that it's a little bit early. Like I said, I was flying the plane solo. It has been a pleasure being with you this evening. Once again, if you enjoy these shows, let us know what you would love to hear about. Let us know what topics you want us to be talking about. We do our best to ensure that we are talking about things that are happening in the news as they happen. Everything that we covered tonight was things that happened in just the last week. But if there's anything specific that you'd like to learn about, that you'd like to hear about, maybe even guess, here I am just opening this platform up without the executive producer's permission. But hey, please do let us know. We love to hear from you. We love to ensure that we are staying true to who we are and also providing you with content and information that is helpful to you. On that note, I'm going to wish you a good night. Please do join us again next week, same time, 8 o'clock Eastern, for another show that will be informative, looking at various topics that are taking place. So stay tuned and go ahead and like all of our channels, like us and follow us on our various social media handles, and we will see you soon. Good night.